You ready? All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It is February 17th, 2016. You are at a governing body of West Milford Township meeting. Please note, in accordance with Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, adequate advance notice of this regular meeting was advertised in the Herald News in its issue of December 20th, 2015 and January 3rd, 2016. Copies were provided to the Suburban Trends, the Record, and the Star Ledger and posted continuously in the main corridor of Town Hall and on file with the Office of the Township Clerk. Please also note, in case of emergencies, we do have exits to the left, right, rear, and front of the building. And with that, I would ask that you join us and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Eric.
Here.
Councilman Hensley.
Here.
Councilman Wagner.
Here.
Councilwoman Dale.
Here.
Councilman Signorino.
Here.
Councilwoman Lichtenberg.
Here.
Mayor Beer.
Here. And first on the agenda, we have minutes from December 16th, both regular and executive, and then from January 6th, the reorganization and executive.
Move them. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call? Oh, I'm sorry, and that was moved by Ada and seconded by Marilyn. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Eric.
Yes.
Councilman Hensley.
Yes.
Councilman Wagner.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dale.
Yes.
Councilman Signorino.
Yes.
Councilwoman Lichtenberg.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. The next item, we have Music in Our Schools and Youth Art Month, and I presume that's what you're here for, right? So let me come down, I will read the proclamation, which you can accept. And then it is my understanding that you'll open the treat in store for us? Beautiful, so come on up. Do I have a short leash again? I have a short leash. So, let me read the proclamation, and then maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more than what the proclamation says. So the proclamation is for Music in Our Schools Month. Whereas the study of music is basic to a complete education, provides a competitive edge for successful educational reform, engages students in individual and group activity, develops creativity, problem solving, and critical and evaluative skills. And whereas music education helps students acquire skills in production and performance of music, as well as an understanding of history and culture. And whereas the New Jersey Music Educators Association is concerned with maintaining and improving school music programs for all students, regardless of their socioeconomic status or their abilities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of West Milford recognizes and commends the New Jersey Music Educators Association for their concern for and efforts to enhance the quality of music education in New Jersey schools. Be it further resolved that the Township Council of the Township of West Milford hereby proclaims the month of March 2016 as Music in Our Schools Month and endorses the observance of Music in Our Schools Month as an opportunity to support the purposes and practices of music education and encourages teachers, students, and all citizens to participate. Therefore, I, Bettina Beery, Mayor of the Township of West Milford, on behalf of the Township Council and the Township residents, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2016 as Music in Our Schools Month. So, tell us who you are and what makes this month so special for you.
Hi, I'm Heather Burns. I am the theater arts teacher at West Milford High School. We do a ton of things in March for Music in Our Schools Month, but it starts off with the high school musical every year, which will be March 3rd, 4th, and 5th this year at 7 p.m. And we're doing the musical Young Frankenstein. And you can get tickets right on our website at wmtps.org. We also have Empty Bowls, which is March 14th. That is an art department fundraiser that they do for hunger awareness, and that's March 14th. Then we also have assemblies in each elementary school showcasing their own art and music. March 23rd, we have the high school choirs and evening of jazz featuring guest artist Edward Hellstrom. March 31st through April 2nd is the Macapin musical, The Magical Land of Oz, and it all culminates in a district-wide arts festival that we do every year, and this year it will be on April 5th at 6 p.m. at West Milford High School.
Okay, and then you have the
Yeah. So today we have one number from our musical of Young Frankenstein, and we have Joe Bellina, who will be playing Frederick Frankenstein, and we have Zach McIntyre, who will be playing the character of Igor, and this is when they first meet in Transylvania.
And then, so you can take this proclamation, and then just to repeat again, if you want, I presume the schedule's on the website also, and you can buy tickets. It's wmtps.org. That's West Milford Township Public Schools, wmtps.org. Okay, thank you very much, and you guys are on. Let me get back up here so I don't interfere.
Dr. Frankenstein!
Oh, you startled me. That's Frankenstein, my name. It's pronounced Frankenstein.
You're pulling my leg.
No, I'm not.
You're not? Well, then your first name, do you pronounce it Froderick?
No, Frederick.
Well, why isn't it Froderick Frankenstein?
Because it isn't.
As you wish, master.
Ah, masters, you must be Igor.
No, it's pronounced Igor.
Oh, well, they told me it was pronounced Igor.
Well, they were wrong then, weren't they? Anyway, did you know, master, that my grandfather used to work for your grandfather?
Oh, really? How nice.
And it's been my dream ever since I was a little boy that I would work for you, as my grandfather worked for yours. Of course, the rates have gone up.
Of course.
Working by your side would be a dream. We can open up the old laboratory, reconnect the voltometers, dust off the old lightning rods, and then, when everything's in tip-top working order, we can go to the graveyard at midnight and dig up a nice fresh corpse.
Oh, no, you don't understand. I couldn't.
Oh, the fantastic things we'll do. It'll be like old times, you and me, right up there with the world's greatest bears. Like Laurel and Hardy, like Hope and Picardy, like Juliet and Romeo, ebb and flow, to and fro, together, together again. Together again for the first time. We've only met in a dream. Up until now, it's been the worst time. But now that you're here, we're a team. Together again for the first time. Haven't a woe or a care. No longer a bad and a cursed time. It's easy to see, you have to agree. We're destined to be a great pair. All of my life I've been stooging around. Nothing to do at a loss. All of my life I've been stooging around. But what good is a stooge if he ain't got a boss? Together again for the first time. Back on the track to renown. We're gonna thrill them, we're gonna kill them. You be the teacher, we'll make a new creature and scare the bloomin' daylights right out of this town.
Stop it, you don't understand. I'll only be here for a few days to settle my grandfather's estate, then I am heading straight back to New York, no laboratories and no creatures.
Made you change your mind, master? Come on, join in the chorus, it's fun!
My dear Igor, I happen to be the Dean of Anatomy in a world-renowned school of medicine. Although I do sing a bit. I was in fact the whip and poof at Yale.
A whip and poof! Wow! Come on, Doc! Nobody's around!
Well, nobody is around. What the hell? Together again for the first time. Having to war again. No longer a bad and
So this is the best time.
It's easy to see.
You have to agree.
We're destined to be a great pair. May I?
Take it!
All of my life I've been bossing around, meaning along like a Scrooge. All of my life I've been bossing around, but what good is a boss if he ain't got a stooge? Oh. Well, I'm sorry. I don't wish to embarrass you, but I am a rather brilliant surgeon. Perhaps I can help you with that hump.
What hump?
Together again for the first time. We've only met in a dream.
like Ginger and Freddy,
McDonald and Eddie,
like San Juan and Teddy.
or meatballs and spaghetti.
But the pair that we cry for, the pair that we sigh for, the pair that we die for is Frankenstein and Igor. For the first time, together again.
Walk this way. No, like this.
Oh,
Yeah. Here, really drag your back leg. It's scarier like that.
Together again for the first time. We've only met in a dream. Like Kimball and Macy.
Like Hepburn and Tracy.
Oh, like Lamont and Gable.
Like good old Cain and Abel.
For the first time. Together again. Together forever again.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, tickets available at wmtps.org. That's March 3rd, 4th, and 5th,
7 p.m.
7 p.m. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was awesome.
Have a good night.
Good job, guys.
Stay warm. Yep. Okay, and then straight from entertainment to executive session we go.
Mayor, can I just make a statement?
Absolutely.
Also, there are tickets available for the senior citizens. They have a special showing for them.
Right.
That is on March 1st. And they could get tickets from Community Services. And it's also for the international dinner that the students from the different languages serve food from the different countries. And that's 4 o'clock for the seniors citizens, so they can contact Community Services for tickets.
Perfect. Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, so again, we go from entertainment to leaving you. Resolution 2016-080, a motion for executive session. Be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of West Milford on the 17th day of February 2016 that prior to the conclusion of this regular meeting, the council shall meet in executive session from which the public shall be excluded to discuss matters as permitted to NJSA 10:4-12, subsection B6, tactics and techniques used in protecting the safety and property of the public, and that would be safety and security at Town Hall. And section B7, pending or anticipated litigation and contract negotiations. We have 2 items there. It would be litigation Newark tax appeals and Village on Ridge. The time when the matters discussed pursuant to paragraph 1 hereof can be disclosed to the public is as soon as practicable after the final resolution of the aforesaid matters. Do I have a motion, please?
So move.
That would be Ada and Marilyn again, I believe, and all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, council. So let the record reflect it is 7:49 and we are reconvening into the public portion of the meeting. Thank you for waiting for us. We have unfinished business, ordinance number 2016-001, an ordinance of the Township of West Milford, County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, amending and correcting Chapter 226, noise of the revised ordinances. This ordinance was introduced on January 20th, and we are opening it up to the public at this time strictly for this ordinance regarding the noise ordinance. Is there anybody here that would like to discuss anything regarding the noise ordinance amendments?
Seeing no one, move to close the public portion.
Second.
Okay, that was Ada and Marilyn. And all in favor of closing the public portion?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I'm not hearing enough ayes. Okay. And motion to move the ordinance, please.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. That was Ada and Michelle. And roll call, please.
Madam Mayor, just real quick before we actually do, the decibels that are set, that's just a standard sound setting? Is that what that is? Because I tried on my app on my phone. I don't think it was too accurate, to be honest with you. I was like, oh no, is this really it? But just want to make sure it's just a standard number.
Yes, this ordinance came before the governing body because there was some statutory references that were incorrect, and also the attachment, which is the chart, was incorrect, and this is just to correct.
Just to clean it up, just a little cleanup.
Yes,
Okay.
it's been
All right, thank you,
seen.
Madam Administrator and Clerk.
Okay.
Thank you.
And roll call, please.
Councilwoman Arrow,
Ada?
Yes.
Councilman Hensley,
Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dale,
Yes.
Councilman Signorino,
Yes.
Councilwoman Lichtenberg.
Yes.
Thank you, Nicole. An ordinance 2016-002, an ordinance of the Township of West Milford, County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 135, fees of the revised general ordinances. This ordinance was also introduced on January 20th, and once again, we are opening it to the public. Is there anybody here that would like to discuss this ordinance?
Seeing no one, move to close the public portion.
Second.
That was Ada and Mike. And all in favor of closing the public portion?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And do I have someone to move the motion?
So moved.
ordinance?
Second.
That was Ada and Marilyn. And roll call, please.
Councilwoman Arrow,
Yes.
Councilman Hensley,
Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dale,
Yes.
Councilman Signorino,
Yes.
Councilwoman Lichtenberg.
Yes.
And finally, also introduced on January 20th was ordinance 2016-003, an ordinance of the Township of West Milford, County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, to appropriate $202,819.27 from reserve for capital purchases. Is there anybody here that would like to discuss this ordinance?
Seeing no one, move to close the public portion.
Second.
That's Ada and Marilyn. All in favor of closing the public portion?
Aye.
Thank you. And would somebody move that ordinance?
So move.
Second.
Ada and Marilyn.
Just a serious question, though, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
$18,000 for the carpet. I should have gotten this answer earlier. My apologies. But how many square feet is that going to get us? I understand that's for a couple of the offices. Do you know how many square feet?
I don't know the square
You
footage.
don't?
I can tell you that we are prepared to proceed with the carpeting in the clerk's office and that whole area, and the clerk's conference room and the administrator's office. There were plans to carpet some other areas in Town Hall, but as you know, an issue came up about the leaks or the floods that were over in the police department. So I've asked Mr. Steins to look into possibly taking the carpet out of there and doing linoleum instead before we proceed then to see what balance is left to carpet other areas in
Right.
Town Hall.
The 18 is a reserve, it's not a,
Right, if you look
Okay,
at
okay,
yeah, if
okay,
you
it's a
look
budget.
at-
That's all I'm asking, because
Yeah.
it definitely would be too much for just those two
I agree.
little
Yeah,
offices.
no, it's
so-
just
I
a
saw
budget
the
number.
bill on here. It was Be Creative Marble and Tile. It was like 4,000 something.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
All right, so this isn't the total, this is
No,
just the
that's the
budget. I
budget.
appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you for answering.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam
And
Administrator.
roll call vote, please.
Councilwoman Arrow,
Yes.
Councilman Hensley,
Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dale,
Yes.
Councilman Signorino,
Yes.
Councilwoman Lichtenberg.
Yes.
All right, thank you, council. We are on to the public portion of the meeting. This is your opportunity to discuss any matter you so choose. But while I have an audience, I would like to just make one brief announcement, please. And that is that we are seeking nominations for the Volunteer of the Year Award for 2015. West Milford will celebrate its annual Volunteer Award and Recognition Night on April 20th of 2016. So residents of the township may nominate any individual that you feel is worthy of the Volunteer of the Year Award. And they would have to obviously volunteer within our own community and be West Milford residents. The Township Council will then select a recipient from among those that are nominated for the Volunteer of the Year Award. And the deadline for nominations is Wednesday, March 9th at 4:30 p.m. So if you know of somebody worthy of the nomination, somebody who lives in town and volunteers in town, by March 9th, Wednesday at 4:30 p.m., you need to turn it into, I believe it is the clerk's office?
Yes,
Okay, to the clerk's office within Town Hall. As you know, there is a committee of former mayors who select the Lifetime Volunteer Award, and they will be doing so. That was be for the Mary B. Hasse Lifetime Volunteer Award. And yes, you can bring it to, nomination forms themselves, are available at Town Hall as well as at the Hillcrest Community Center and the library. So feel free to pick up that form, fill out a nomination, and again, remember to submit it by March 9th at 4:30. Deadline, and again, the volunteer recognition night itself, hoping you can join us, will be April 20th. Okay?
I saw it today.
And with that now, is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? Doris?
So the council.
Doris Aronson, 19
Doris
Bearfort
Aronson,
Road.
19. Doris Aronson, neighbor next door to the mayor.
At 19 Bearfort Road.
So the council frequently compliments the Boy Scouts for all the nice things they do in town. So today, I would like the council to know that the Girl Scouts also do some nice things in town. Last few days, I was in Milford Manor as a patient. So the Girl Scouts on February 14th, Valentine's Day, came and gave everybody in the manor very nice Valentine's gifts. So I'd like the council to see what our Girl Scouts do. So there's a card with beautiful pictures and a nice bouquet of flowers with a butterfly on it. And a couple of valentines in appropriate pink and red coloring. So we have very fine Girl Scouts in town. They do different things than the Boy Scouts, but it was very important for the patients in Milford Manor to get cheered up that way.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Very nice.
It certainly is a lovely gesture. Thank you, Doris. Anyone else?
Seeing no one moves to close the public portion.
Second.
Okay, that was Ada and Lou, and all in favor of closing the public portion.
Aye.
Thank you, council. All right, and we are on to the, any council comments regarding the public comments?
No, thank you, Mayor.
I was going to say, I kind of just assumed so. The next item is presentation, 2016 budget overview, in particular the capital budget, and we have Mr. Bob Casey here as our consultant. Welcome, Bob. Welcome back.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
My
Can you
target-
introduce yourself as well? I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me. My name is Robert Casey. I live in Susquehanna, New Jersey, and I'm here as a consultant to the municipality on their 2016 budget.
And Bob, I'm sorry. Right. Can you pull the microphone? Thank you.
Okay. The 2016 budget, my goal tonight is to have a little bit of time with you to talk about big picture items. I'll spend some time talking about the business side of government, i.e. cash regeneration, where you stand on your collection ratios, what your surplus looks like, etc. I have distributed to the governing body a spreadsheet, which we'll go over shortly. The second item is that I've distributed to you a capital budget, which consists of all the requests from your various operations. It was presented to you, I think, in response to your request on a three-part basis. The first part is the capital budgets that you funded between 2012 and 2015. And then we have the capital budget in 16, but I've included it on the same page as it also shows you 14, 15. So you have basically a 3-year spread, and then the last set carries it forward from 17 through to 20. Theoretically, we're supposed to do a budget which is a current plus 5 years. Usually the current year is accurate, the second year is a little bit less, and by the time you get to the 5th year, it's just sort of plugged. So I haven't totaled the capital budget because the main purpose of the capital budget, and I'm hoping that we'll spend some time in this when you meet with your department heads, is actually spend some time talking about what's coming at you, where you're going, and what the real needs are. Because in many respects, I think sometimes when you get to the departments, you tend to get lost in the weeds. And sometimes you need to step back a little bit and say, okay, what's the big picture of what we're looking at? And that's the whole purpose of the capital budget. So the real question of the governing body is, how much time do you want me to spend?
They need to understand the situation and
Oh,
the
don't do that.
recommendations.
Don't wind me up and go. I can go all night. You know that.
Council, how detailed do you want to get tonight? How preliminary is this?
Well, I mean, I was expecting to get like a summary and what maybe your vision was or recommendation so that we can come back for a roundtable discussion about it.
Yeah, Reader's Digest version.
Reader's Digest,
Reader's
the condensed
Digest.
version?
Because I think the point would in addition to what Mr. Casey stated, is that if you recall, council, the goal would be to pass the capital part of the budget early enough so that we can actually get purchases
Right.
done and get equipment in and get started on paving and everything else. So in that regard, while we don't want to rush it, we want to make sure that gets passed earlier in the year rather
Right.
than the usual June, July, August.
And the issue on the capital is obviously when you meet with the individual departments, you spend more time going in depth. So I was going basically tonight just to look at these sheets and just talk about some of the big pictures issues out there. And then when you talk to the individual departments, you can focus down. Because I think that gives you a better overview, because what's happening, if you look at that capital budget, is a little overwhelming. The documentation of the needs, and they're all legitimate. The issue is prioritization. And that's really going to be difficult because, as you know, it gets rather competitive at times as to who gets what in terms of the money available to you. So if we go to page 6 of the budget sheets that I sent out to you, we won't go through the individual ones. These are the ones the department submitted. You'll be looking at those. Just for your information, the budget itself is finished. It'll be copied hopefully tomorrow. The financial portion was done about 5 this afternoon. I just got to spend some time tomorrow night putting it together. My goal would be probably to have a budget delivered to you by the middle of next week, so we may want to talk about how you want to go about reviewing it in terms of the detailed budget. I have not hit the total button yet, so I can't really give you the answer on the total. It's in that computer over there, but I haven't really looked at that magic number yet.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. Deliberately did that. So I wouldn't have to answer you tonight. So we'll be in a position, you'll be in a position by this time next week or thereafter to actually spend time working at, going into the detail on the budget and starting meeting with your departments in order to wrap this up. I think your goal, hopefully, what the mayor was saying, if we can spend some time in March, wrap this up, our goal really should be to try to introduce in April, which should be early for us.
Would be.
The law says, but we're supposed to be in February. I haven't done that in 20 years. But that's beside the point.
We're going to get there somehow.
We will get there.
And I'm feeling you're going to help us.
Will we get there before the year's over or not?
Well, when you know what your capital expenses look like or projected year after year, it's a little easier to get there.
The problem you have on your capital, and I know at one time, Lou, you indicated that your goal was that we should basically look to borrow in any one year what we retired in the prior year so that we remain in a static, except for sections like the building going up across the street. Well, one of the issues we'll talk later is you retired 3.2 mil in 15. So following your philosophy, we would then have 3.2, which sounds like a lot. But when you start looking at what they're talking about in roads and looking at the fire trucks and everything else, you're very quickly way over that number. I think it's a rational basis, by the way, that you're saying, in terms of managing your cash flow and everything else. But that's going to take some hard decisions by the governing body in terms of not only prioritizing. One of the issues that I want to get to when we get to, you really need to start looking in at a lot of your equipment, actually getting some type of an agreement as to a standard equipment replacement schedule. Because one of the issues that you'll notice in this is that there's suddenly 2 fire trucks came up. That's $1 million bucks. When you meet with the fire department, they got reasons for that, and I'm not saying they're not, but one of the goals I think you really need to do is to reach an agreement like with Public Works, the fire department, say, okay, here's what we're looking at for the next 10 years,
Right.
and start basically saying, okay, from a financial standpoint, we can only do one of those every second or third, whatever the case is. You need to put that in place because otherwise you have what you have here. When you start adding the total up, you're about 3 times what your goal is.
Well, I've got to tell you a little secret, Mr. Casey. That is true. I did ask for a threshold so we wouldn't increase the debt anymore. And that was just my way of trying to steer the ship around, because that was just my first step. And then I really wanted to decrease the debt. We even talked about pay as you go, but debt, people have to understand there's some bad debt and there's good debt. So certainly there's certain things you want to, mortgage off, but I would certainly like to lower it when possible. But anyway, just wanted to just include that in our conversation. But I'm certainly comfortable at keeping it the same and not comfortable increasing it. So
that's a valid policy decision that the board, the council may want to will grapple with when they reach that point of actually trying to come down to that number, or whatever number you feel comfortable with in terms of where you're at. Right. One of the other issues we're going to talk about very briefly, is that if you look at your assessed valuation this year actually went down. So it's not like you're generating new income
Right.
that you can use to offset that debt. And that's something you have to be concerned with, particularly as you all know better than I do, the impact of Highlands and everything else. There's no sugar daddy out there that is going to come to your rescue. But if you look through when you look through those sheets, obviously there's a lot in there that are relatively minor items. I let the departments freely indicate what they feel they really need, because I think it's important for you to know and have a look at that, so that you know where they're coming from and what your final decision as to what's really important one way or the other. But when you start looking at some of the issues that you of course you have in recreation, in terms of you're great at getting these grants, we have a hard time making them cash match. We've had that problem. I know when I came here in 2014, we had a backlog that we had to quickly address and you got the same issues coming up here, because the mayor's been very successful going down to the county and getting these grant commitments, but there is a tail to that dog, and the tail is you got to come up with a match. So you're starting to see in your recreation program, where we've got this year coming up in 2016 significant required matching funds to grants that you received. And if you start looking right on that page, you've got like $250,000 in cash required to match the money you got coming in. That's something that has a priority because of that issue coming up. And the same type of priority you start seeing coming in from the engineering division, because one of the issues that Miller's come up with is he's got a DOT grant coming in, which I think is like $400,000, but you're looking at about like $6,000. Or whatever the number is to come against it. So sometimes these grants sound real good, but they have commitments that force other things to go out. A couple items in here that I think we really need to spend some time on, which are unusual ones. And I'm on page 8. Because page 8, what I just gave you is written on the bottom. I'm really looking at lines 63 and 64. And one of the questions that impressed upon me is, okay, the library is under construction. You're going to have a section of that library available for your use. And nowhere have we talked about how you're going to fund the outfitting of that section. Now, I put an arbitrary amount in here to generate some discussion. I said, well, we put $100,000 in here. This is a nice, easy number to type. And the whole purpose was to get the governing body to say, okay, if the library gets done by the end of the year, and we anticipate occupancy early in 17, which is reasonable, the issue then is going to be...
What about the furniture?
Yes. And I don't think you'll be in a good position to be able to sit there and say, oh, well, we can't occupy our space till the fall because we didn't come up with money.
Yeah.
One of the issues in here, I have no idea what the number is. But it's there to say to the governing body, that's an issue you really need to pay attention to, because you really need to come up with a number so that you'll have those funds available, that you can be ready when the library has its grand opening. You actually have a room that you can go to that's outfitted versus barren walls. But it also begs a question, which is in this.
Well, we do like open space in West Milford.
Like open space. That's true. Exactly.
You know, libraries following the same concept.
Or the tables in Hillcrest doors.
Likewise, the issue that's also raised in here, which is not really a good number, but is for planning purposes, is, okay, you're in that library, this building is vacant, there's been several studies done in what to do with the old building. So the issue that I put in here for 17 is, okay, or 18, whatever year you want, there's been some engineering studies, 2 or 3 of them.
And they all came to the same
250
conclusion.
depending upon whether you're going to use the basement or not, and whether you're going to issue waiters to those people who work in the basement. But the issue then becomes outfitting that building. And then in 19 or 20, then the issue becomes, okay, now you do the magical chairs, you move people around, and you free up some space in this building.
Right.
I've laid that out here. It's in the budget for discussion purposes. The numbers are not refined enough that I would never say that you're going to use those final numbers, but the idea is to get people moving in that direction so that we can, or you can be prepared for those events as they hopefully unfold.
Bob, I don't foresee the outfitting of the library space, the municipal space in the library, I should say, being as significant as fixing up the old library, let's say, because most of the construction cost has been already figured in, and hopefully that the number won't keep increasing, but we're gonna need tables and chairs, basically, you know?
I don't know how
So,
the window treatment.
the floors will be there, the walls will be painted, the lights will be there, everything, the doors will be there. You know, we're gonna need tables and chairs, basically, and whatever else, you know, we might,
I don't know what you're, I don't know,
so.
I just put
But
it in
when
here.
you're talking about the old library, that's a
No,
whole
no,
different
talking
ballgame.
about the new library, and I think you have a council committee that's working on that. Or-
Right.
All I'm just saying is, you need to get a report back from that group to document what that number, it may only be
a good
10
point.
I don't know what the number is.
So
I'm
maybe
just
that
saying,
subcommittee should meet and we should have the discussion and bring
you
it
need
back
to
the
have a
council.
discussion on that.
I mean, there's really not
Tim
much
just needs
talk
to,
about.
no, Tim just needs to put a
Yeah.
budget together for what his needs are to use the rooms
Yeah,
as anticipated.
That's true, yeah, and just,
Yeah.
All I'm just saying is, we need that number in here so that you have something to have an opening on. The other big issue is looking at, we got some problem areas. For instance, it's one of the many items, but the septic system, the DPW building is no longer working. And they're actually pumping on a routine basis, pumping out the holding tanks. We have an estimate in here, I think it's low, of 60,000. The reason I think it's low is I'm not quite sure. I remember the numbers that we paid for the septic over there, and that was simple compared to this one, because if you know where the DPW is and that slope and the hills around and everything else, that's an issue you have to look at.
did you say 16?
16.
Okay.
And they didn't hear there's documentation of how the number came up, but I just know the number, I just don't remember the documentation. There's also some issues in here relative to your existing facilities you have to look at in terms of needs. They're outlined in here, we'll spend some time talking about them. Engineering, and over the last 3 years, we've been talking about that dam at the lower bubbling. Well, I guess Fred's finally got the easements. I think we got the permits. So the issues in here right now, they're looking at like $360,000 to replace that dam, which from my understanding is required to recirculate the water back for bubbling springs. It's a big number. And then, of course, there's the normal repaving program, and Eric will give you his normal song and dance as to, at least $1 million, if not more, for 5 miles or how many miles of roads he can get. So all that sort of stuff is laid out in here. In terms of the big ticket items, the other big ticket item is the fire department. But there is 2 fire trucks in there. Obviously, I think that's open for discussion. But also, when I talked to the fire department, and I think that they have to have these discussions, there was some concern over the aging of their turnout gear and the aging of their breathing apparatus. And there are all life cycles in those things, and if you don't replace them on a recurring basis, you can have failure, which can be, from an injury standpoint, catastrophic. They've started to request those replacement programs. They've asked for all of it up front. I think we can have some discussions with them as to multi-year phasing, but it's one of those issues. I know the same thing is the chief's had it in his, that, bulletproof vests wear out. So you guys, fortunately they have a way in the police department to replace those things on a recurring basis. There has to be that same type of situation in the fire department, because you just can't afford to have people exposed on the on emergency scenes. So overall, big pictures, big ticket items, some major decisions. It won't be easy, because it's way over a reasonable target. All right, so when we talk to individual departments, we'll go into that in detail. All the papers are here. You're going to get your big 3-ring binders. Everything this year is designed, this is designed to read landscape. Everything else is this is portrait. Everything else is landscape, so he wants to turn the book sideways all the time, except for this. We couldn't do this that way because, unfortunately, it was already done by the time I arrived here.
Can I have this file electronically, please?
We don't have electronically.
No, this one.
These,
Excel.
yes, the spreadsheets are all electronic. Happy to send them to you. There's no problem there.
Thank you.
All right, so while I still have you awake, let's spend some time going to the second report, which is really what I want to do more on, which is the subject of your year-end statement. So it's this 3-page report. Okay. We're going to go through this and spend some time because this is important to understand your cash generation. So the very first item is surplus. Your timing is perfect. So the bottom line is, if you look on this page and you start looking at the very rows 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, on that first page, you start getting into column J, which is 2015. You had a very good year, as Frank Sinatra would say. However, there were some reasons for that good year to sort of mitigate against it. So if you look at that column 15, the first line, you started the year with $3.8 million. You used 2.5 in the budget, which is the biggest amount you've used for many years, which was fine, and you left 1.3, what's called working capital, which is basically available for regeneration. You had a good year in that you actually regenerated. We're going to spend some time talking about how you regenerate surplus. You regenerated $3.5 million. So at the end of the year, you get the biggest year-end balance you've had maybe forever, 4.8. So if you go to the last column, K, I'm suggesting that you're going to use 3/6 of that. You're going to keep 1.2 in there. So you're going to actually reuse more in surplus than you ever had before. However, there's a footnote on that surplus. The footnote is included in that regeneration of 3.5 was $800,000 that we had to pay back to Newark. We collected it last year on an added bill. You all know what happened. And in February, we actually, at their request, took that money and applied it to their 16 taxes. So take $800 off the top. What the budget will do is that the money's coming in on surplus and it's going out in reserve for tax appeals. I also found out today that we also had $140,000 in what we had to reserve for tax appeals, that the auditor collapsed the surplus because you're going out for bonds and you wanted to show a large surplus balance. So that's $900,000, which is going in here and went out there. So the bottom line is, if you take $900,000 off the 3.5, you're down to about 2.6, 2.7. It's a good year. It's as good as the year in 14, but it really, when you bring it back down to that level, everything is pretty much equal. And if you go forward, yes, I'm saying you do 3.6 going over, but in reality, already 950 that's going to be accounted for. So you're really having surplus going forward of about 2.6, 2.7, so about $100,000 to $150,000 more than you had last year, because the other items are already committed out there. So it's a good year, but. So let's talk about surplus. Go ahead.
So on the regeneration portion, that only accounts for the Newark tax appeal. So the $1,500 to $2,500 we realized, but not the $2,500 to $4,000 per assessed value.
Okay, what you've done there is you're basically billing out Newark in this year at $2,500 at the old rate, which is I think $2,580.
Right. No.
The old new rate.
The old new rate. Okay.
We
Well,
didn't go up to
that
the upper rate.
Right.
We very deliberately made sure that the assessed valuation is at the more comfortable level. But the last thing we want to do is go too high and then have the schools and county count on that, not have it come back and we have to pay the schools and county back.
Right. So we're reserving it.
Well, you got to be a little conservative on that because
You don't want to get stuck with it.
you don't want to get stuck.
So we still haven't realized the full benefit within the budget of that appeal then.
We basically take the appeal in on one hand and take it on the other. So the appeals.
So we haven't realized
No,
it
but
within
the first one we did, we're not accounting for the second step.
Right.
First step is in there, though.
The first step is in there.
So that would be approximately the $150,000 difference.
I don't know where you come up with $150,000.
Because you were saying that the surplus, we increased about $150,000 extra. We were finishing the year.
Oh, okay. No, I think a lot of that has to go with the other. We'll go through some of the other numbers down there. There are other things which accounted for that.
Okay.
So get on to the next set of numbers, which is called surplus regeneration. One of the most important issues that you have in any budget is every year you regenerate, hopefully, if you do a budget right, and you don't over-anticipate revenues and under-anticipate expenditures, you will regenerate cash. You have to understand something for those who are new. Municipal budgeting is a closed loop. The money stays in that loop, and whatever you don't spend, a year later comes back as surplus. So some people say, well, you know, if once you put it out there, if it's not spent, it goes never, no, it's closed. It comes back in the surplus. And if you look here on line 19,
Yeah.
line 19, $1.3 million represents money that you had in your 13 budget that was not expended in 14 and is canceled and is not, 14 budget, not expended in 15, and is canceled and now carrying forward. So a significant portion of your surplus, if you look at that line going right across on almost every year, a significant portion of your surplus is in fact budget unexpended balances coming back to you a year and a half later.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, we'll show you that you normally spend about 95% of your budget. Last year, you spent 94. We'll go into that a little bit further. But that's about right. You normally spend, and you sit there and say, well, you know, we can go to 98. You're right. But remember, when you go to 98, it means that not the following budget, but the budget the year thereafter, you're not going to have that surplus coming back in. So sometimes I've gone into municipalities, and there's been an issue as, you know, we make sure that we do it. So I guarantee you we can do 1 year with no tax increase. Because I simply move the tax increase forward 1 year. I pull all the surplus, I pull down the reserves. Magic, 1 year, it's usually the mayor's election year. Not your mayor. But then all you've done really is you basically build surplus for the subsequent year. So it's better to do it the way you've been doing it here, keep your surplus generated. So if you look at that line, the first line, $185,000, is miscellaneous revenues you had in the budget, and you anticipate $185,000 more than the budgeted. We'll show you those in a moment. Then you had delinquent taxes. You budgeted, I believe, 2.2, and you collected 2.7, or excuse me, you collected 2.35, so you collected $157,000 more in delinquent taxes than you budgeted. And we'll show you that a little later. The next line is excess taxes. The tax collector had a tremendous year. She collected 99% of the levy. So you collected 1.276. However, 800,000 of that was what went back. Okay? So her real excess collection is about $400,000. You know, which is significant. It's a good year, but it's not as outstanding as we had before. Then you had some your current year cancellations. What we do is the auditor looks through and certain current things we cancel out. We then have MRNA, M-R-N-A, miscellaneous revenues not anticipated. Certain items we don't budget because they're unknown, and you basically bring them in, and they all come in here. And so we had a MRNA of $282,000. So overall, you look like we regenerated $3.5 million, of which probably 2.7 or 2.8 is reoccurring regeneration. So it was a good year from that standpoint. So let's turn the page and let's talk a little bit more about budget revenues and stuff. As we indicated, you budgeted miscellaneous revenues of 6,295 and you got 6,481. So that's like excess building permits, that's like excess court fines, that's like any number of the various issues that you charge for and everything else. You normally generate money there, although this year you generated a lot more than you've done in the past. As I indicated, you budgeted 1.2 million in delinquent taxes. We had a good year. She got 1,357, which is good. We'll look a little bit later towards the end of what your balances are in terms of your current delinquencies. Your taxes budgeted was $22,240,000. Then you have to add the library to that, and you added taxes. The bottom line is she collected $24,484,000 of the and the actual levy, which was $1,276,000 more than what we budgeted. We'll talk later about that. That gets into account what's called a reserve fund collected taxes. For those who are new, we use an accounting system which is crazy at times. In a municipal government, the county, the schools, the library, the municipality must anticipate 100% of the tax bill is going to be paid. Then the municipality budgets what's called a reserve fund collected taxes. We have to anticipate that if we collect 98%, there's 2% we're not going to collect, and we fund that as an appropriation to guarantee to the county, the schools, and the library that they're going to get their full amount. It's called the reserve fund collected taxes. It's a big hit on your budget, but it's an accounting mechanism. The way private sector would do that is they would back off their revenues and match historic receivables versus billables. We have to use the billables. So the next line we look at taxes received, as I said, was 24. She did 1.276 more than we anticipated. Taxes at the end of the year was only 1.381. So the bottom line is, if you look historically, our balance at the end of the year was better than it was last year, i.e. the amount of delinquents out there. So our delinquencies are down. More and more people are paying. Her actual collection ratio was 99.1%. Normally here, you look at it, it's always been 98. I suggest if you back out the 800,000, you find she's down to about 98, where it's been historically. Historically, you collect about 98, which is a good number. Good number. There's many places. I am working over in a municipality in Pennsylvania. The tax collection ratio is down to 85. Makes some interesting discussion. So the next line we have on there is Myrna. This is miscellaneous revenue not anticipated. Every year you look back there, you see you normally spend, usually collect 277, 253, 300, in that area. Last year was unusual, 425. You're back to your norm. And you start looking at what big there, and the only big issue there was an insurance dividend that you got back from the JIF. Last year, you got a big insurance premium back, and that's why you had a much bigger number. You normally get about 140, 150 back from the JIF as they distribute their, I don't want to use the word profits, but excess reserves, for lack of a better term. It's just been very successful. And the other item, if you look there, there's a $60,000, which was the money that Fred basically sent a check to you relative to the resolution of the Hillside lease. Now, one of the items in the capital budget, I'm glad this brought up and reminded me, Hillcrest, has to go with Hillcrest. You have basically resolved Hillcrest through July 1 of 15. That was why we got the money back. And you have a 15-month, they also are holding 15 months of notice. You have to give them 15 months notice to move out. Capital budget projects that in actually in February of 17, not in 16, 17, if you don't basically exercise your option to vacate Hillcrest, you're going to start spending $70,000 a month in rent for Hillcrest. That's the cost. Not $70,000 a month.
Annually.
Yeah,
Annually, right. $6,500 a month, excuse me. Annually, $7,000. That basically, right now, with the money we have on hand from a prior bond ordinance, we're covered from July through.
I wouldn't call it rent either. It's maintenance costs.
Actually, it's capitalized maintenance costs. That's
Right.
the only way you can basically handle it.
Thank you.
Theoretically, the money's to be used for.
Right. It's not rent.
capital improvements.
Right.
Leasehold, whatever it is.
People they get all weirded out about the whole rent that we pay rent, and the whole intention is not to
The
pay
issue is
Board of Ed rent.
there is a cost to Hillcrest, and that's what it comes down to. Right now, we have it covered in the financial reserves and everything else through that point in time. If you were, for instance, to this season, this spring, this winter, spring, trip that 15-month clause, that would basically carry you from now through June or July of 17,
Right.
which is about right from a timing standpoint, because at that point, that will be open and other things. But that's a decision you're going to have to make, because it doesn't impact you in 16.
It's another budget hit if we.
It will be a big hit
In
in 17. So that's an issue that's in the capital budget for discussion purposes. And the reason I mentioned is that 60 here reminding me to talk to you about it. Your assessed valuation is $2,761,000,000. Last year was $2,766,000,000. So you're down $5 million for various reasons. You can talk to Brian. I'm not quite sure where it is, but you're down $5 billion, which in essence means, from a income revenue generation standpoint, the penny in the dollar is going to get about the same as last year, just a little bit less. If I remember right, your penny gets you $247,000. Every penny is $247,000. Yeah. Turning the page, let's look at what our tax status is at the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, you had $1,449,000 in delinquents. And you had $1,009,000 in liens. If you look, your liens have been growing. And I know one of the items in the budget is that you put money in there for foreclosure action, and you've done that for several years. I would assume that relatively soon you're going to start seeing the foreclosures perfected, as it's called. They take a fair length of time to go through that process. So you're going to start basically closing in some of those liens. If you look at what, if you go down to the bottom line where it shows at the end of the year, look at line 70. At the end of the year, our liens were $1,003,000, so a little bit less than we were last year, and our delinquents, our taxes were $1,003,000, and our delinquents were $1,097,000. Basically, you're basically floating pretty stable there. Your liens aren't going up or down. Your delinquents aren't going up or down. You're maintaining yourself pretty well. The only issue is you are growing that amount of liens, and the only resolution there is foreclosure. That often forces the issue with the property owner and/or any lien holders or anything else. That you start foreclosure, they either pay or they lose it. And I know you're doing that, and it's an item in the budget, and I think it's like $29,000 if I remember right, which I would suggest you keep in there and keep that attorney busy, because that's the only way eventually you're going to keep on top of it. In terms of your delinquent collections, she collected 43.7% of all delinquent taxes, which is one of the, not as last year she was 38, year before the 46, but she's in the 40s, and she's basically getting the ones which are collectible. I mean, we all know there are properties out there which just can't, eventually are going to have to be forced in terms of turnover of the other person. I look at, usually when I do this, I look at some of your current fund. I look for cash liabilities, just to look and see if there's anything there jumping off the page at me, or reserves. Actually, you're in fairly decent shape. There's really nothing there that is variation that much over the last 5 to 7 years. In terms of liabilities or in terms of receivables. The only reason I say that, I've seen situations where they're owed a lot of money, they have receivables out there, particularly in your grants, and sometimes, especially if you're doing a major infrastructure, water and sewer, you can literally be cash broke and asset rich because you just can't get the money in from the state and stuff. So your receivables are in decent shape. Again, if you look at general fund liability, it's the same thing. There really is nothing dramatically different. The biggest change is the appropriation reserves. It went from $1.2 million to $1.7 million. That's because in 15 they didn't expend as much as they did in previous years, and that's a good sign because that will build surplus for 17 going forward. Going to the the next page, look at your budget. Your total budget was 33 million. You added 351, which probably were grants, because that's usually what you add during the year, your grants. I take the reserve out of it for uncollected taxes, so your operating budget is really 31.5 mil. Of that, paid was 29.7. Now, paid means paid and encumbered. Okay? That left you a balance of $1.7 million, which is basically uncommitted at this point in time. Hopefully, the only thing that really comes back to bite you later on, sometimes your utility bills lag a little bit. So you may see some of that payout of that $1.7 million paid out usually in the winter, early spring months. Two problem areas that we have in the capital account. Capital surplus. Capital surplus is in the capital fund balance, it's money that is usually there because you ended up canceling portions of a bond ordinance. You issue $1 million and you spend $950, you cancel the 50, it goes to capital surplus. Or there's also in here a line which is premiums collected on certain sale of bonds and notes and stuff like that. So your capital surplus started the year at $146,000. You had premiums come in of 68. You spent 100 of it. Unfortunately, at the end of the year, it means our capital surplus is only 53,000. Capital surplus is nice to have, but it's not critical. The next item is the one that's critical: capital improvement fund. The capital improvement fund, when you float bonds, you have to have 5% down. That 5% is what is in what's called the capital improvement fund. When you do your budget, you'll find out that there's a line right in the budget that says contribution to capital improvement fund. And for every dollar you put in there, you can bond 4 on top. Okay? Now, the issue there is you started off the year with 61,000. You spent, and you put 100,000 in, so you had 161,000, and unfortunately you used 161 of it. So bottom line is, at this point in time, your capital improvement fund is down to $933. What that says is that when you do your bond, you look at your capital ordinance, whatever you finally decide that you want to spend, you're going to have to put 5% of that in cash in this year's budget. There's no reserves you can carry forward on that. So if you basically funded $3 million, you're going to have at least $150,000 of appropriation. Now, just to get everybody riled, in the budget, when you get it, I put $200,000 in there. So you may want to be generous, but there's 2 reasons I did that. One was to provide money that you could borrow, and the other one was to restore your capital improvement fund, because it's a little low. And it's important to keep it there because really, that's your line of credit. If something never really happens, and you have to you lose a building or you have major damage, something like that, that's where you get that money to go out and borrow. And it's important to keep a balance there so you can leverage that balance going forward. So that's an issue we're going to have to address with the budget. Last page, bonds. The first item is bonds, which are the notes that you issued. You'll notice that you started off the year at 22.5 in bonds. You paid off 2.3. You ended the year at 20.2. However, you just floated, Monica, you floated how much? 6.2 or 6.3, something like that. You floated 2 weeks ago. So you're right now, it's actually like 26 mil in terms of what it is right now. Now, the good news on that, since you did it in January, the first payment of that really is due in January of 17. So we avoided this year's budget on it, but it means you got to hit in January of 17. And I think that when you talk to the attorney, we look at that, you're going to find that there are also some of your old debt is dropping off. So you usually try to float bonds when the old debt drops off so you can keep it a level. I think there may be a burp for 17, but it should drop off by 18. Assessment bond you're clean on. Your bond anticipation notes. At the beginning of the year, well, you had only $500,000, and the reason for that is we did did a big bond sale at the end of 14. We took all that out. You issued $5 million. You paid down $322,000 because you have to make partial payments on that. So right now you got 9.7. Of that 9.7, obviously some of that was just converted over with that bond issue we just talked about. So, and now, so you take 6 off that, so your BANs right now are going to be about, about 3 to 3.5 mil. Because when you go from bond anticipation notes up to bonds when you actually float it.
That's right.
About $3 million out of there, and that came due in February, we added the library too.
Okay.
So notes outstanding are more like $6 million, and that comes due in October. The library.
The bands.
We didn't have bands out on the library yet,
Okay.
so
They will now.
now they have the bonds.
Okay.
So it's 6 million?
It's still roughly $6 million and change still out there in notes.
That's the big picture. The big picture is in good shape. With an asterisk and qualifications. But you're in decent shape going into this year's budget. Given the unusual nature of what happened with the Newark payments and the other cancellations, last year was a good year. This year, you're also going to have a good year going forward. Make your decision a little bit easier. But there's no sugar daddy out there that's going to basically bail you out of any major expenses you're looking at. All right, so now the question to you is, however you want, as I said, you'll probably have the budget. I doubt we'll get it out on Friday because we still have some work we have to do on it, but by the middle of next week, we'll have it ready. So then the question is, how you ever want to go about going through that document and meeting with your various departments. So by the end of this time the end of March, you'll be ready to introduce. If you have any questions you got, we'll go from there.
For me, when you're ready to finally submit it, I'd like it electronically as well.
This I can send you electronically. I can send you this electronically and the capital budget format. Anything this way I've done, so we can do it. Okay?
Council, you want full council with all of our department heads like we've done in the past, rather than committee?
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor.
Right. So that would be question number one, I guess. And then when you say, how do you want to go about it, Mr. Casey, are you talking about, I mean, obviously we have to schedule it if we're doing full public meetings with department heads, so.
Well, that's the issue. The issue is, do you want to set aside special meetings? Do you want to do it on a weekend? It's up to you to decide when you want to handle this. I would recommend to you, don't try to do more than 3 or 4 hours at a time because everybody's head goes a little crazy. So you're going to have to set a whole series of chunks that we can basically then schedule people in for.
So we need some ground rules basically so that Kathy could then kind of find out what everybody's available.
I think the first question would be, does council want to discuss the capital budget first with each of the department heads, like all of the capital budget?
Sure.
Yeah.
Or do you want to do the capital budget as part of the department head presentation? The issue is capital budget by itself or capital budget at the same time you're talking about the operating budget.
Well, maybe we could start off with just the capital budget itself, just the capital.
But there's about 3 big departments you got in capital. We need to bring in, obviously we need to bring in recreation, we need to bring in
DPW.
fire, we need to bring in DPW. Those 3 are the big, it's capital small.
You know why? Because if we can at least have that discussion about the capital, and then we can have the department heads do their overall budgets. We'll already had the conversation about the capital. We won't have any commitments, by then, but at least we've already had that discussion instead of mixing the two.
No, that's a valid way of doing it, because as I said, the problem when you get the detail is you spend too much time in the weeds. You don't really have the chance to sit back and say, where are we going? What's the big picture? But so there's at least those 3 major, recreation, public works, and fire are your 3 big bites there. And then Antoinette and I can handle the facilities and stuff like that. There really is no one else that can handle that. So, but we'll do that in between.
And
So
you think
really
we could do that in one sitting?
No.
The capital?
Two sittings.
2 sitting? Okay.
I think 2 cities.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say that. You could basically bring in the fire and say we got an hour for fire, an hour for DPW, and an hour for recreation. Yeah, you can do it in 1 3 4 hour session.
Like on a Saturday, do 4 hours or split it up 2 nights, whatever.
You can do that. Yeah.
So then the question would be, what is the council's pleasure? Would it be a Saturday morning, 4 hours, just on Capitol, or would it be?
Yeah, I like the Saturday morning,
I'm good either way, so.
4 hours.
I'd rather get it over with.
Yeah.
One lump sum.
I'll accommodate whatever everybody else prefers, so.
Well, better the majority, but I would prefer nights.
I'm not good with nights.
I mean-
have so many other meetings at night, committees and.
4 hours is a lot. I mean, it is a lot, 4 hours.
Well, we're saying
Yeah.
within 4, we should be able to
So-
get it done.
You know,
We just
But otherwise,
basically
it's
take
two
certain people and
twice,
tell them, no, you
you know,
can't
like-
talk that long.
Either way, you're interrupting.
We know which ones I'm talking about.
Ada, Marilyn, what do you think?
I like the idea of Saturday.
All right, and one session, because otherwise you're breaking up 2
Yes,
Saturdays.
Just
so.
one session.
You
And
can
hopefully
start
it's
at
within
5
4
a.m.
hours, so.
No.
All right, so we'll try to pull the council on available Saturdays, mornings, I presume, so you can get on with your day.
Yes.
And then we'll have to do the regular department head meetings.
Pardon?
And then we'll have to do the regular department head meetings
Right.
after that. So that's
Right.
one Saturday morning, which we'll have to work
For
on.
capitals.
And then there would be the department head meeting. So
And-
same thing for that. Do you want to do multiple ones on Saturday mornings? Do you want to do evenings? Do you want to meet an hour or 2 earlier on a Wednesday night when we're scheduled to be here anyway? Like in each once, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, we did that, I think, when I was here 2 years
That
ago. We
works.
basically
Right.
started.
Yeah, starting at like
Yeah.
5:30
One
or
night.
That's the thing, because
something.
like we're already out anyway, so it might be a hassle to get here an hour or 2 earlier, but then at least you're not taking the whole nother
Another night
night
out.
or Saturday away from either your family or other commitments, so.
Right.
So we'll work on that.
So for now, that would be the consensus, that so the March regular and workshop meeting will schedule for 5:30.
Right.
To do budget between 5:30 and 6:30.
So we're talking about putting the budget meetings the same day as our regular meetings?
Yeah, right before them.
We did that. We did that with Mr. Casey one time.
Yeah.
And not just have a focus on the
We're
budget?
controlling it in that, we'd only bring one department head, we have a limited exposure. You're not gonna be able to do the whole budget that way, but that will allow you to take one night and just do recreation, or one night and just do public works and stuff like that, manageable bites.
Then we'll have to have special sessions.
Yeah, well, either way, we'll have to have specials, so.
You're still gonna have to have a special on
Yeah,
top to get the other
right.
ones.
Right. Okay,
So
so,
we'll start out with that, we'll get a schedule out to the governing body for the capital meeting for a Saturday, and then we'll reschedule the March. We'll start with the March and do them early.
Okay.
okay. All right, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Casey.
Thank you, Bob.
We'll see you.
Okay. And we are on to new business, ordinance number 2016-004, a resolution of the Township of West Milford, ordinance of the Township of West Milford, County of Passaic, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 500 zoning, Article 14, signs. I'm terrible with my Roman numerals, can you tell? Article 14, signs, Section 500-152, permits required of the revised general ordinances. We will be having a second reading and public hearing on March 16th. Do I have a motion to move this ordinance?
Second.
Ada and Lou. And when you're ready, Nicole, a roll call vote, please.
Councilwoman Eric?
Yes.
Councilman Hensley?
Yes.
Councilman Wagner?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dale?
Yes.
Councilman Signorino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Lichtenberg?
Yes.
Thank you. And then, as always, council, if you are agreeable, I would like to move resolutions 2016-081 through 2 and including 092 plus 095, which was included in your packet but not listed on the agenda. It is posted, so that would be items numbers 2 through 13 plus resolution number 2016-095.
So moved.
Second.
All right, that was Ada and Marilyn again. And is there any discussion that you'd like to have on any of these resolutions? Okay, then when Nicole's ready, a roll call vote, please.
Councilwoman Eric?
Yes.
Councilman Hensley?
Yes.
Councilman Wagner?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dale?
Yes.
Councilman Signorino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Lichtenberg?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, council. We're now on to the Resolution 2016-093, a resolution authorizing the payment of bills.
Pay them.
Second.
That would be Ada and Michelle. And roll call vote, please.
Councilwoman Eck?
Yes.
Councilman Hensley?
Yes.
Councilman Wagner?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dale?
Yes.
Councilman Signorino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Lichtenberg?
Yes.
Thank you. And Nicole, please, if I'm ever going too fast, you can say you need a minute, okay? And we have reports. And Michelle, you're up first this week.
Okay, great. Attended the CASA meeting, and I have some information that I would like to share. We are pulling together all of our resources, and we've put together a schedule as well as resources available within the community and outside the community with anybody that has a need for substance abuse counseling and what have you. So the first date is March 24th. CASA is sponsoring from 7 p.m. till 9:30 the 7th and 8th grade semi-formal at the West Milford Elks. April 15th, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. There's a forum on RX and heroin abuse in New Jersey that's located at Monmouth University at Posky Hall. To be announced, the date, we'll be doing a Dizzy Challenge with the West Milford Township High School. Peers as Leaders Club will be sponsoring it, as well as West Milford CASA. April 29th, New Jersey PN, New Jersey Prevention Network Annual Addiction Conference is taking place in Atlantic City. May 1st, Regis 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. is Walk Out on Drugs. It's being sponsored by the Elks Club. And the location is the Recreation Center at 66 Cahill Cross Road in West Milford. On May 7th, from 12:30 to 3:30, is the West Milford Health and Wellness Fair at the Hillcrest Community Center Gymnasium. May 18th, time to be determined, is the West Milford High School drunk driving reenactment, and it's going to be at the West Milford High School. June 7th, from 9:15 to 2 p.m. is the Health and Wellness Fair at the West Milford High School as well. June 27th, from 7 to 9 is 6th grade beach party at Bubbling Springs. June 30th, 7th and 8th grade beach party at Bubbling Springs, and in late August, date to still be determined, is the incoming 7th and 8th grade beach party. I'm going to hand this over to the Cable TV Committee to post the bulletin on treatment facilities, Al-Anon information, Alcoholics Anonymous, and other resources that we have listed. We're also going to be asking the administration and the CASA liaisons to be pulling these resources and references all together within a link found on the CASA website, which will link to the township website. So that's where we're at with that.
Maybe also link it to the police department.
To the police department, yes, as well. We are still pulling, we've gotten more resources in one area than we've been able to accomplish in a long time. So we're still in the infancy stages, but it's a 3-page list of things that the CASA committee has come up with and the coordinator. So we'll be pulling those together and getting them linked on the website. And as the police department put out from the Facebook post, I think it was about a week ago, they're always available, and they have resources there as well to direct people who are in need. If you don't have availability to this information or prior to the links coming up on the township website and what have you. The fireworks committee did not meet because we got some weather, but I have prepared an actual layout of a budget that I will ask the administrator to share with the rest of the governing body via email of anticipated revenues, expenses, and the reserves that we need to keep in anticipation of being able to have the celebration next year. If anybody has any questions, I actually labeled each category, explaining what we have in a trust account now, what we've collected, what our anticipated collections are, the anticipated expenses, as well as keeping the reserve to be able to book the funding for next year, which I think is important. And that's all I have. The fire departments, we did attend, we haven't had another meeting since the administrator followed up with last week. I do have one more thing, actually. March 5th, Company 2 is having a fish and chips fundraiser dinner. If you're interested in going, please see one of the members of Company 2, or you can contact Kim Smith. And Kim's information is, hold on, I do have it, 862-881-6080, if you're interested in attending. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Lou?
Thank you, Mayor. I always like to report on the museum as a liaison to the Heritage Committee. We like to see people come out and visit the museum. We archive a lot of the history of the town, a lot of the beautiful stories you can find there. A lot of volunteers can walk you through and show you some of the beautiful history that we've collected. People do donate things, and certainly if you know anybody who has any kind of historic items or even has stories to share. We haven't done a Reminisce series in a while, which is where we'll have somebody come and give their historical recounts of West Milford and the history, and have an audience, and it gets videotaped. And actually, I'm looking forward to this series being broadcast on our TV channel. So if anybody knows of anybody who's interested in the history of the town or wants to share or take in the history, certainly direct them to the museum. We're open from 1 to 4 on Saturday, so please come on down. The planning board, nothing to report. We did have a meeting, as you know, Mayor, but we just paid the bills. There was really there was no business. Insurance committee, we did have a meeting, and we had our risk manager come in and our health insurance provider come in, and we met. The committee had our discussions, and the committee voted. The majority vote was to keep status quo, which is to split the insurance services between 2 vendors. I for one, I actually did not vote that way. But I certainly am a little concerned being here for my 6th year, but it is my job to bring back to you the recommendation of the committee. So certainly, if the council does wish to have for the next meeting, I guess we would have a resolution for
We would have a resolution for the risk manager, Mr. Cavalli.
Right, because of course the health services is just a holdover, so there's nothing required,
Mr.
right?
Vaza is retained directly through the HIF, so
Through the
we don't
HIF.
need to do a resolution.
Right,
please.
okay. All right, and then we also have, actually I wanted to bring something to everybody's attention, which is a pretty big deal to West Milford, because historically it's something that we've always been interested in, and the talks have started. Matter of fact, what I'm talking about is the rail system, the commuter rail system. That's been talked about for over 20 years now, and if some of you may know, they've revived the concept of expanding the commuter rail system, at least in the lower Passaic County area, from Hawthorne to Hoboken. And if anybody would remember, the original plan, that was actually the first phase of the original plan, which dates back before 1996. I believe Alex DeCroce, he actually was spearheading the effort, and it was supposed to go from all the way up to Sparta. It was a good plan. There was money available, and there seemed to be a good amount of support, and nothing has happened since then. So now the county's looking for resolutions supporting the lower Passaic County commuter rail expansion. And I know that there are certain towns that already have passed that resolution. I don't know if that has actually landed in West Milford yet. But what I would ask is, and I've already reached out to freeholders and our assembly office, and I will be looking to contact Mr. Garrett as well, to see if there is any interested by our state and our federal legislators, because in fact, actually the money that will be utilized will be federal funds. I know there's discussions about $100 million that were supposed to be appropriated for structures like, substations and whatnot. And as many of you may know, we did have rail stations in Charlottesburg, Oak Ridge, Hewitt, and Owasting. So we used to have trains running through. So I would certainly want to explore that avenue, have West Milford as part of the discussion. I'm a little concerned that West Milford has not been proposed yet, so I think it's because it's in the early stages. I think we should be part of the conversation. And I would say that if we're going to even entertain a resolution supporting the concept of expanding a commuter rail service, we should ask for a modified because I don't actually have that resolution. Madam Clerk, if you could get that for us, and we can modify it so that it would be inclusive of West Milford, and ask for their support and see if we can kind of get our legislators behind it. I'd certainly appreciate it. And I, for one, would certainly want to have maybe a subcommittee and do it formally, so it would go through the clerk's office. I thought maybe since, it's for continuity. I mean, I've been here this is my 6th year. I know Mr. Matt Wagner just got on board. I think it would be great to have, maybe one of the seasoned council members and one of the younger members, and maybe, kind of tackle this thing together and see what we can get out of it.
If there's consensus from the council to proceed, Mr. Signorino, perhaps if you could direct me, maybe we can talk tomorrow and I can gather some information for the governing body and
Yes,
schedule it for a workshop.
that'd be great, because what I would like to ultimately get, what I would really like to do is get the all the backup information, like, the historical, from the beginning. I know from 1996, when Mr. DeCroce was looking to have this thing in working order, I'd like to kind of get all the backup so we don't reinvent the wheel. And then maybe we can have your office contact Assemblywoman DeCroce formally, and Mr. Weber, and Mr. Garrett, and Mr. Panaccio, and see if there is interest, and see what backup information they also have regarding the topic.
Yeah, I think we'd need a lot of the research done so that we could have a discussion, and then we could form a committee if there's more interest. I mean, I think everybody likes the idea of a rail system. Like you said, it used to be here. It would be wonderful to have a more effective way to get into the city or even just other sections of New Jersey. You mentioned that the resolution floating around now that was for Lower Passaic County, which means not only are we not included, but there's probably a chunk between us and where they are including it. So their next step, if they even expand it, would be to, would be the next level, and then eventually to us. But I just think we need all of that information.
Yeah,
so that
absolutely.
We can pursue
But
it.
this is it's paramount to me that we do something soon. Start the discussion.
I don't disagree.
And the reason is because I'm already hearing that, some of the towns actually, at least one specifically that is included in that Lower Passaic County plan, is actually adverse to having money spent in their town. So we may find ourselves in a position where it might actually come up higher and maybe bypass. If they don't want it, maybe we can get it, sort of thing. So, but the fact is, we're not part of the discussion, so we certainly should be.
We need the research, that's all.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, thanks.
Anything else?
No, that's it. That's it, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
And Marilyn.
Thank you, Mayor. I had mentioned at the last meeting, and again I will, for seniors, if you need help with filing your taxes, your April 15th tax returns, you can get help at Hillcrest at the community center. Just call 973-728-2871, and they'll set an appointment and tell you what you need to do. The Highlands Family Success Center, which is funded by the Department of Children and Family Services, is having a free dinner dance this Friday night, the 19th. It's a free dinner dance at the Journey Church of the Highlands on 185 Marshall Hill Road. If you'd like to go to this free dinner dance, call 973-506-6575. I think that's basically what I have for a report. I do have a question for Fred, though. Is Fred still here? Yes.
Here.
I know I previously had a discussion with you regarding background checks for council people, and it was determined, I brought this up a number of years ago also, that government officials can't be made to have background checks, you told me. But I have another question. Random drug testing. Could township officials or government officials be randomly drug tests if they're payrolled and they're are considered township employees?
So are you basically speaking about like the governing body or throughout the township?
Because I think the employees, don't we have random drug testing on them?
No, only those employees who have CDL licenses are
Right.
subject to random drug
Oh, that's
testing.
all?
That's correct.
So-
Oh, okay, I didn't realize it was
Yeah.
just,
And I was going to say, in the
Is there something that you should be telling us, Marilyn?
No,
I mean, I'll take one right now.
I'm just saying, just like background checks, I really feel that everybody should have that when they're
Right, I
elected
think,
as an
you know,
official.
with respect to background
Likewise.
checks, there's been some changes in the law. I could take a look. I think the thing to stress there is, although there may be a way to do that, it would not result in necessarily anyone to be ever removed from office, you know, but because
Right.
you're elected. But I could take a look if that's what the council would like me just
But
to.
I didn't realize
to
that the
research that.
random drug testing was just for CDLs.
And
Thought it
police.
was for all town employees. I didn't know that. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Just in theory, just so you know, I don't disagree with you in terms of like, of all people to get a background check, it should be the people that you're electing to
Electing to
represent
office.
you.
Right.
I would personally think it's important, and I would happily personally have a background check or a drug test or anything else, but
Right.
it's pretty amazing to me that we're somehow exempted from that. But do you have consensus to have Fred look into
Yes.
the background check rules?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's okay.
And drug test.
Okay. And Ada?
Today I recently brought a really good friend of mine home from a local business, Milford Manor. If anyone needs, compared to a year ago, they're under new management, and it is a completely different place. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful place compared to a year ago. So, and welcome home, Doris. TV committee.
For the town.
We're still looking for more volunteers to the TV committee. We're in desperate need of cameramen. We're in desperate need of young people who want to submit stuff. This Friday, the United for Prevention Passaic County is having another meeting on drug prevention down at William Patterson, 8:30 to 12 noon. We'll be attending. 8:30, it's the middle of the day, come on. And they give a breakfast with it, so you can wake up when you're down there. And I agree with the random or not so random drug testing. I think everyone should submit. Let's lead by setting an example.
Ditto.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Mike?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
Thank you, Mayor. As Councilwoman Dale said, the weather inhibited us having the meeting on Monday for the fireworks committee. I've had several conversations and also met with Tim Rotman and kind of been reviewing the budget myself, and I've actually been looking at the projected expenses and see where we could have some savings. One, for example, was the Porta-Johns was budgeted for $1,500. I was able to get that down to about $740 with a partial in-kind sponsorship from Noah's Ark and some reduced rates on some of the Porta-Johns. And just kind of looking at the budget with them and see where else we could have savings. Knights of the Highlanders, they've also committed about 20 volunteers for the fireworks. And I think everybody knows that Lakeland Bank has also committed $5,000 for the next 3 years. That's all I have for the fireworks. Rec Advisory Committee is actually tomorrow, so I have nothing to report on that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Antoinette?
Mayor, I just have, I put a report on the dais. One of our staff members in the engineering division was asked by the school to produce a township map and to provide them with a copy. And the map that we had is a map from over 20 years ago from the Chamber of Commerce, which was a wonderful resource for all these years, but it is not quite accurate at this point in time. So we do have an updated map, and if the council will give consensus, I'd like to replace the maps that we had in the clerk's office that we were selling for $3 with this map. It doesn't have a legend yet, but we will get there when a legend comes up, so.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And that's
Yes,
all
I think they did a very good job on the map.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Yes.
Many thanks to him.
The anonymous person in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
engineering
yeah,
they
I can't figure that out.
Yes, I will tell them many thanks.
All right, and Fred?
No report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. You're all clocked out from executive? We brutalized him in executive, just to let you know. All right, and then we have Resolution 2016-094, a resolution accepting resignations tendered. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Lou and Ada, and we can just do an all in favor for this.
Aye.
Aye.
So we really
Aye.
have no choice whether we like to accept resignations or
Right.
not. And would the council like to make any appointments? We have the insurance committee with
Yes, Mayor, I'd
availabilities.
like to nominate Ada Eric. She has been attending the meetings, so I'd like to nominate her to be on the insurance committee.
Okay.
I'm just a little confused as to why council people are serving as citizen leaders on committees and commissions. That to me doesn't really make sense as a general rule. For one thing, it seems to exclude the public, for which the citizen leaders are generally saw and looked at for for the volunteers themselves. It kind of to me kind of crowds the space. I certainly admire both Marilyn and Councilwoman Ada Eric's volunteer spirit, but I kind of have some concern about serving in dual capacities. I don't know if Fred, if there's anything you could add on that, or the appropriateness or inappropriateness.
Yeah, I think that, you make the rules as the governing body, so you decide you want to do that. So long as it doesn't affect a potential quorum, I think it's within your discretion. It's a policy decision.
For example, like I know the first instance I've seen this take place was when Marilyn was previously serving as a member. I don't know, maybe was it to the senior citizens or something as a citizen member, and we allowed her to stay on serving as a senior citizen member. And I just thought that was, good-natured and well-meaning from the council. But now I'm starting to see a trend where, there's a move to be on this committee. If you're not the liaison, you can still be as a citizen leader. And I don't see the rationale behind it. And I would like to, I think it kind of stifles the recruiting effort by all of the council people to get people in the township involved in a volunteer kind of manner. So I'm voting no, not because I dislike Ada, because I actually do like Ada, but I'm voting no on the principle that I don't want to see it this kind of, discouraged volunteerism is what I see it as.
I'd like to answer to that because I did have my name in this committee for quite a while, and I do go to the meetings, and whether I'm appointed or not, I'll be going to the meetings. But the other 15 people on the list, oh, that's right, no one else is on the list.
Well, the resignation just came through, so I think we should maybe table this to another meeting or two and see if anybody else wants to put their name in.
I mean, I would certainly agree to test the waters, see if there's any other interest, but also want to bring out what I think is a very valid point, because as council members, right, we are elected here to sit amongst each other and discuss the issues and make decisions. And, it is within our purview to appoint members of our council as liaisons to certain committees. What I see happening, and it's a concern of mine, and maybe this isn't the case, so I don't want to shed too negative of a light, but I see this as kind of like stacking. So, there was insurance committee, I was appointed liaison. There's other committees where somebody else might have been appointed liaison. So, okay, well, I can't be the liaison, so I want to be on the committee as an official committee member, so I still get to vote. So now you have two different council members voting, when really the advice of the committee should be brought to the entire council, because really then in that theory, then maybe all council members should be going to all the committee meetings. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, that you can't or you shouldn't be allowed to go. I certainly don't want to be prohibited from going to any meeting if I should choose. But when it comes to participation and interfering with what would be otherwise a normal committee function, now you have multiple council members there, then why not just have the discussion amongst the council members, and why even have a committee? So, I mean, I think you're basically diluting the purpose of the committee, and what you're doing is basically, trying to push political influence one way or the other by adding more council members. So I think you're losing the whole spirit of having a liaison from a citizen board or group that's supposed to give their advice to the council as a whole. So,
And not only that, but we're gonna have a quorum issue in different cases. If we got one or two liaisons, and then you got a citizen member, and then someone shows up as, a council person shows up as just in the audience, you got a quorum, you can't even hold, you can't even have the meeting, it's gotta stop.
No, that wouldn't be the case, right?
You know, I mean, we,
Talking and somebody just shows up.
Yeah, no, it's not a quorum.
and it's one thing to be at the meeting, it's another thing to participate, you know? Sorry, Fred, we.
Raising the question, but
No, because that was raised before. when
Yeah,
it
that I
was
would
said people
discourage.
Show up.
Yeah, that I would discourage, you know, because I think that does lend itself to the potential to violate the Open Public Meetings Act, even in spirit. I just think it's a good practice, and I think one thing West Milford's always done is been very careful about that, where, you know, if that were to happen, as Councilman Wagner said, that just wouldn't. I'm not saying for or against whatever the discussion is, but if you have that many members attending, it would create a problem. You know, I think that when it comes to subcommittees, because there's subcommittees of the council, that is something that the council is doing. That is a council venture. You have multiple members, and we've had discussions about quorums because there's a concern about quorums if you have too many members. And I've been in support of having 3 members, 2 members, depending on the committee. I'm fine with that. But when it comes to a citizen committee, it is reserved for the citizens. So to have the council, multiple council members there, I think you lose the spirit of having the committee itself, you know, and I see it. So I'm just speaking out of experience.
Well, Mike, you had mentioned something regarding the senior committee and myself. I was on the senior citizens committee before I was on the council. And then I was not on it as a member when I'm on the council. I am the liaison to the seniors. I am active in, senior groups. I participate in the Senior Olympics. I always have. I don't think because I'm on the council that affects that.
I just recall an instance where you were serving as a citizen leader prior to your election, and then you stayed on, I forget which committee, or it might have been the Lakes Commission, I don't know. There was something that you stayed on as a citizen leader, and I thought that was all well and good. But now, since that time, a year plus has gone by, there's a new trend that I'm identifying that.
I am on the recycling committee, yes.
Yeah, so I knew there was one committee or commission that you stayed on as a citizen leader, and like I said, initially, that was fine, but now I see a trend to use the word Lou used, was to stack the committees and commissions. That doesn't, sit well with me either.
Absolutely. If you're exerting, multiple political people on a board, I mean, you're basically,
All right.
it's just, I mean, if anybody can't see where it's going, I mean, you just, I don't think it should be done. And I think this is a respectable council, and we ought to just, work appropriately.
All right, I need to add to that point then. I don't disagree, and I've made this argument probably about 8 years ago when a council member wanted to stay on the rec committee and, recreation was important to him and he took a citizen spot. I don't disagree with that fact. Citizen spots should be held by citizens. But to use the argument that you're stacking it politically, when that's exactly what happens with appointments, look at what happened at reorg, look at the stacking. There were votes for people that weren't qualified but are political leaders in town or friends with political influences instead of good citizen members that had qualifications. So to use that as an argument in this particular instance is quite frankly just laughable and hypocritical. I do agree that they should be filled by citizens
So you're speaking to me
if possible.
directly, so I would say then it's like the pot calling the kettle black, Madam Mayor. But honestly, this is below we're the governing body, so I'm trying to maintain a certain level of decorum here. And I don't want to get into like an argument with you, but I'm speaking honestly and sincerely as to what I am observing in the committees. And you want to attack me as to what I'm saying, and I don't appreciate it. So
I did not attack you, Lou. I attacked the fact that where I'm merely speaking.
The argument that I'm making.
Excuse me. Just like you have your opinion that by putting council people on, it would be stacking it politically. I'm saying that is happening anyway by putting on citizen members. I agree with the fact that citizen members vacancies should be filled with citizens whenever possible. If there's no citizens interested, then you might resort to council people. I'm merely stating my opinion that the argument about political stacking is happening anyway. And all you need to do is look at appointments that have been made, and you can see that what I am saying is a factual statement.
Well, I take great exception to that, Mayor, and I'm very surprised to hear you speak like this, because only 2 years ago, the entire Recreation Committee that I was a liaison to was nearly decimated by, dare I say, political appointments that you helped to steer and to navigate, and to pretend so otherwise would just be dishonest. So I'm surprised that you're making these assertions when, and I'm also astounded that you call into question people's credibility to be accepted on the committees and commissions. I don't know why you wouldn't insult volunteers like that. That's not really like you, and I'm very shocked at that.
I'd like to pick up on that one too. Only this one I'd like to point at Lou, because the other night at the insurance committee meeting, a vote was taken. And when they were asked me about the vote, I said, I don't vote. I'm just a bystander looking on.
I don't remember anybody asking you, Ada.
Yeah, well, apparently.
But you did put your input, and I appreciated your input at the time. But now you're using it against me because you're pointing me out, and I don't appreciate it.
I'm not using it
I'm just
against
saying,
you.
in
I'm
all honesty,
pointing out
nobody
what
did
went on
ask you at the meeting. Nobody
And
asked
me,
you.
I feel if you really want to get down to it, because I've been volunteering my entire life. So if you think that I'm going to sit up here and make an uneducated decision about something that's going to come up here to vote, when I have the opportunity to go to these meetings and listen to what's going on.
So now you're making it an emotional argument. Nobody
There
said you
is
can't.
no emotional
Nobody's
argument
opposing you
there.
going to the meetings, Ada.
I think
We're
we're
talking
losing-
about taking a citizen member's position as a council person. So please try not, don't
Pull
get away
my
from what we're
name
talking
back.
about.
I'm going anyhow.
Hold on. I'd like to get this back in order, and just to say, when I made my comments, I wasn't pointing fingers at anybody in particular. I'm not saying that anybody up here is either exempt or guilty. I'm just saying that appointments are made, and they are based on people who you either know or are affiliated with or have political alliances, and that's just a statement. I'm not saying it was me, you, or anybody else. But getting back to the point, I think right now what's up for discussion is do we want to fill a vacancy with a citizen member with a council person? And right now I heard a nomination. I have not heard a second yet.
Second.
Okay, so we now have a nomination and a second. We now, for Ada on this committee, and it comes down to a vote. You can vote yes. You can
Actually,
vote
Mr.
no.
Wagner tabled it as well.
Yeah, I'd like to add just one thing to this.
Absolutely. I just wanted to get
Yeah,
the
I
conversation
appreciate that,
back.
Madam Mayor.
No, but-
I mean, the whole
I'm not
idea-
trying to end the conversation. I'm trying to get it
The
back.
whole
on track.
idea of a liaison is a go-between between the committee and the council. There's a trust. There's a reason why we vote. To be a council person and then go as a citizen member, to me, just throw the whole system out. What's the point? I mean, are you trusting one another or not? That's the whole idea of a go-between. If there's a lack of confidence, then say that. Then maybe we'll do another vote and have another liaison. But I think it's, quite honestly, I think it's offensive.
Well, and there
The
should
whole-
there
the
should
whole
be minutes
process.
too. There should be minutes too. So
Absolutely, there should
To
be
keep
minutes.
to keep
Absolutely,
everybody
and
involved.
That's your checks and balances right there.
Right.
But there has to be a trust amongst us. And the fact that, we have liaisons, that's the whole idea. Liaison doesn't vote. He brings back the information to the council.
Right.
It helps out in any way they can. And I appreciate all the volunteering.
Uh,
I like to be involved as much as I can. But the same token is like, I wear the hat as a council person. That's what I was voted for. And whenever I'm involved in a town capacity, I'm there as a council person, not as a citizen. To me, I think in a lot of ways, you give up those rights. You're a council person. That's all I
But
gotta
Tim,
say.
just to tag up on what you said, I've been on the recycling committee for 27 years
I
now.
appreciate that.
In the last 5 years, I've been the liaison. I don't vote. I bring back.
And all
but
that
I don't
experience
vote.
got you to help you get to this point right here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Still think the bottom line is we have a motion and a second for Ada to be placed on the insurance committee. I think we've all pretty much stated how we feel about citizen members, non-citizen members, council members, whatever. We just need to either close and confirm or see if there's any other nominations, although there was no other interested individual, so I'm presuming not, so close and confirm. And then you take a vote, and you vote your conscience based on whether you think it's the right thing to do or not. That's all. I think the
Well, I
discussion got out of
appreciate that.
hand.
I appreciate that, Mayor, and you know
And I
what?
think-
This is this is a meeting of the council. We're supposed to have our discussions. We have our comments. We give our honest opinions and recommendations to our colleagues here, and there were some concerns raised, and you had to make a statement that said basically that we were being hypocritical as a council. You didn't point anybody out singly, but I took offense to it being in my 6th year, okay? And for you to say that we're being hypocritical when you make appointments and you make political appointments as well, Madam Mayor, but
I didn't
I'm
make
not
that
here to
argument.
argue, and I wasn't here to put anybody down. I was trying to give my sincere opinion about having council members, additional council members as liaison when you already have a liaison. So.
I say I'd like.
And I gave my opinion.
I'd like to move the
Our
vote then, Mayor.
Thank
citizen
you.
member.
So, do we have a motion to close and confirm, please?
Motion to close and confirm.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. That would be Mike and Michelle. And now we can do a roll call vote for putting Ada on as a citizen member on the Insurance Committee.
Councilwoman Eric?
Yes.
Councilman Hensley?
No.
Councilman Wagner?
No.
Councilwoman Dale?
Abstain.
Councilman Signorino?
No.
Councilwoman Lichtenberg?
Yes.
1, 2, 2 against 3, right? So the motion's defeated, correct? Right?
Yes.
All right, so the vote was 2 in favor, 3 against, 1 abstention. Ada does not get put on the Insurance Committee at this point in time. And with that, I would like to
I
make
think
a-
we had other members, though, that did have citizen leadership forms in, so if they could be. No, we don't. We didn't? Okay.
Yeah, I'm certainly not ready to.
There were
make it right.
people that were no longer interested after reorg.
Okay.
So motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second. And all in favor, that was Ada and Marilyn again.
Aye.
Yes, everybody?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Good night.